Hey there, and happy Sunday. This is Tim from AlphaWolfTrading.com coming at you with this week's stocks to watch for trading and investing. I'm going to try a new format. You know, at Alpha Wolf Trading, every day at the end of the trading day, I go through a market recap for all the pro members. We go through all the sectors and the overall market, take a look at what sectors are hot, what sectors we may be seeing some rotation into, and identifying some changes that are happening. We do that on a daily basis. So for the weekly video, I'm just going to stick to the economic calendar for what may be coming up in the upcoming week that could impact the markets. And I'm going to focus on when we're in earnings season, we'll take a look at stocks that are coming up, the most anticipated, which ones I think technically could offer an opportunity for some type of trading opportunity off of the earnings event, and then other stocks that I'm interested in because of their earnings, but for maybe just to see how they impact the sector, or to see if it maybe triggers another stock that I'm looking at for a sympathy play. So we'll get to that in a second, and then we'll go through a brief list of stocks to watch. I'm going to try and narrow those down as well. Nowhere near my full list of stocks to watch. I do provide the pro members over at Alpha Wolf Trading stocks opportunities and stocks to watch on a daily basis. For stocks that I am looking to actively take a trade in, I create a trade plan. These are for swings and long-term holds. I provide the entry target, the exit, the stop, exit to scale, take profit, second target to scale and take profit. And if you're interested in that type of thing, come check us out over at AlphaWolfTrading.com. But let's go ahead and get started with what's coming up for next week. We have a lot of economic data coming up next week that could impact the markets. We've got Chicago PMI, pending home sales, and Dallas Fed manufacturing service on Monday. Then we've got motor vehicle sales, PMI manufacturing index, ISM, construction spending on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday we've got mortgage applications, ADP employment report. I don't put a whole lot into that one there. We get the petroleum status report, which is always good to watch every week. We get the jobless claims, Bloomberg Comfort Index, and then we get the big jobs number on Friday that could impact the market. So we do have quite a bit of economic data coming out next week that could impact the markets. I will say this, I'm not going to go through the sectors, but I will say this. Last week, there were several sectors that, we were overbought in. We were overbought, we were a bit extended, and I mentioned that even if we had tremendous earnings, we may see some weakness in the markets. And that's exactly what happened last week. We had fantastic earnings, but a lot of the companies that reported had already moved into the number. And we were in many sectors in an overbought condition. So we saw a little bit of weakness on Thursday and Friday. There are some sectors that are looking, a little iffy. We'll see if that weakness continues. There are some sectors out there, like for transportation sector, for example, took a pretty good beating last week, and maybe we see a bounce there, maybe not. Maybe we see more weakness. It's approaching its 200-day moving average. The IBB pulling back a little bit, IWM pulling back a little bit. So oil is a little bit extended, right? Broke over 10, but now it's been up several days in a row. We'll see how this all plays out. But the markets right now, I think there are some caution flags out there, so you need to be careful. Now, if you haven't watched my video before, the stocks these are the most anticipated earnings that are coming up next week. They are not all of the earnings that are coming up, they're just the most highly anticipated. And the ones that have the green circle around them or box are the ones that I technically, if you look at their charts, I think they have a good looking potential setup, either a bounce play off of support or potentially a breakout out of some type of bullish formation. And some of them that have green circles, I already have a play in, right? I'm already involved in the stock, and so I'm really interested in those, and I am holding some of these into earnings, believe it or not. Not my full positions. A lot of times if I make some profit in a stock, I will sell off a portion of the stock and hold a portion through earnings to see if we get any kind of follow through. But let's go ahead and take a look at some of these names. We've got Pandora, which we just exited a trade on. I did a full trade plan on Pandora. We bought it really almost right at the bottom for a nice little snapback play. Had a nice short-term swing in it, gotten out. Now it is still consolidating and looking fairly interesting at the level that it's at. Or it could set up nicely either for a pullback to support for a bounce, for a swing, or it could be we could see a breakout in it. So Pandora is one that I happen to like. Shopify, very nice looking chart on Shopify. Sprint, kind of an interesting looking chart there. Pfizer, British Petroleum, Lumber Liquidators, FireEye. FireEye, I already have a small position in. It's in my long-term hold portfolio. I've been in it for a long time. They tend to disappoint. We'll see what happens. But Groupon, Amarin, OCLR, which is Aclaro, I have a little small position there. Just did a trade on that one where we put out a trade plan. 3D Systems could be approaching an area of support for a bounce. Immune Design, Marathon Oil, I actually have a position in Marathon Oil. Chesapeake, I have a position there. Hymex, GoPro, I have no position in GoPro, but does have kind of an interesting chart. If they were able to beat, could get a nice pop out of GoPro and give some nice guidance. Weight Watchers, we took a trade in Weight Watchers and we sold it way too early. Made money in it, but we could have made a heck of a lot more money. But that one's pretty interesting. Big short interest there. Could be looking to take out all-time highs. And then Calumet. So a lot of stocks that I think technically are interesting. They're not all on my list of stocks to watch for next week. Take a look at them yourselves. See if you can see what I see. But they're pretty decent looking setups technically. And then the ones, like I said, with the black box around them are stocks that I'm interested in the sector. I'm interested in how they could impact the market, or I'm interested in potentially sympathy plays to their earnings. A lot of breadth this week, a wide array of stocks that are reporting, and it could be a pretty interesting week. Apple, right, big one. Tesla, another big one. Square, another big one. Activision and Take-Two Interactive. I think one of the stocks in my list of stocks to watch for this week would be a sympathy play to some good earnings reports there, or bad earnings reports. So a lot of different stocks coming up that I am very interested in their earnings. Under Armour. So there you have that. Let's go ahead and jump right into the stocks that are on the list for this week's stocks to watch for day trade or investment opportunities. And then we'll take a look at this CYTR. That's where we will start. And this one had a nice pop on some pretty big volume on Friday. You got a couple of things going on here. You got an area of resistance, could have a potential flat top breakout, right? And the $1 holla. As well as a long-term trend line break. So big volume on Friday, popped up into the trend line, popped up into this price resistance, and pulled back. So the dollar is a big spot. This could be a red to green opportunity if we get some kind of follow through volume. maybe look for a pullback into the 74, 72 cent range, somewhere in that area. See if it holds as support for a bounce, and then look for a trend line break and potentially a $1 test, right? So if you get it on a pullback to 74 cents, and you put your stop just below 60 cents, right? You're risking 14 cents, and you're looking for it to go up and test the dollar. It's not a 2-to-1 risk-reward ratio, but for a quick scalp, right? That's not a quick, bad little return. It's this one is strictly a day trade opportunity to me. There is a gap to fill on the daily potentially if it breaks out, over the $1 holler with conviction. There is a big gap to fill on the daily. You likely run into some resistance somewhere around $1.50 or so. That could be a good second target to take profit, but worth keeping an eye on this one. It doesn't have a big float, only 148 million shares in the float, and 12% short interest. So day trading opportunity there. Let's take a look at TRQ, which is actually we'll get to that one in a minute. We'll go to ZN first. So oil, which had a nice week last week. Now oil itself is getting a little bit extended. So if oil takes a pause, consolidates, then maybe you're going to see some pause and consolidation within some of these oil and gas names. And we also have some earnings coming out next week that could impact that sector as well. But ZN, actually one of the pro members, just took a nice little swing in ZN recently, and look, mentioned last week towards the end of the week that this could be looking like a decent place to get involved again. And you're getting the stochastics, which are starting to curl back up to the upside. You've bounced right off of the 50 EMA. Potentially, maybe you see a move back up into this trend line somewhere around the $5 holla, currently at $4.22. You could be looking for a pullback to $4 as support. Put your stop just below, I don't know, maybe put it down at $3.50 or so. But look for a pullback to 4 in that area, 4.380, somewhere in that area. See if it holds as support for a red to green move. This could be a day trading opportunity or a higher risk swing, which just means you need to play it more size appropriate. Don't get overly aggressive. But 45 million shares in the float, which is tiny, and then 7.5% short interest. I think ZN is worth keeping an eye on for a potential red to green move, either a day trading opportunity or a short-term swing opportunity. Good volume too, so you've got some liquidity there, right? Traded 4.3 million shares, so it's not like you're going to have a difficult time selling the shares, but worth keeping an eye on that one. IMGN, that was on our list last week of stocks to watch, and we were looking at it for earnings coming up on Friday. They reported earnings on Friday and had a nice little pop. Now it's flirting with the $7 holler after just breaking over this trend line. It managed to close right above the 20-day simple moving average. You've got a rising 50-day, rising 200-day. Good volume on Friday. This also could be a red to green type play. Specific trade setup. You look at maybe a pullback into the $6.60 range where you've got a bit of price support. Maybe that's your entry. You look for, you put your stop maybe just below 610, right? 609, 605, somewhere in that area. And you're looking for it to take out the $7 holla, maybe go back up and test into that $8 range. Very good risk reward. Biotech stocks, 71 million shares in the float, 23% short interest. So it can get a little squeezy because there is some shorts there, and it's not a big float, only 71 million shares. If you were to take this, I would be looking at this more of a day trading opportunity, but it could be a higher risk swing as well. But it's a biotech, so you got to be careful there. IAG, gold. So gold is actually showing signs of life, coming up against a long-term, longer-term trend line as potential resistance. If it takes that out and you get a nice pop in gold, if you continue to see the dollar weaken, gold could get a nice pop. And I got to tell you, this has been a stock that we've been watching in AlphaWolfTrading.com for a while. It's been consolidating really nicely, and it really is my belief that this is probably one of the best looking stocks out there within that space, the gold miner space. So got a little bit of action on Friday. Trades good volume, but this is a thick stock, so this is probably more of a swing than a day trading opportunity. If gold really breaks over that longer term trend line and you get some kind of nice action there, I think you could see some really nice action in this IAG. Worth having on the radar, probably more of a swing or even potentially a long-term hold if you're into that kind of thing. LQMT, so here's a penny stock. Now, full disclosure, I have shares in LQMT. I bought them significantly lower. They have earnings coming up in August, actually. And they also have they're moving to a brand new facility. They got a lot of stuff going on. They just, the stock has been around for a long time. This is not like some, fly-by-night penny stock. It's been around for many, many years. It's just never made any money, right? Now, there is a potential long-term trend reversal, and there is a lot of resistance to try and get through here. But new management, significant insider buys, 25-cent range, 15-cent range. A lot of interesting things going on there. Building a brand new manufacturing facility in Irvine, California. A lot going on there. I do not have the size of position that I had before. I've scaled out, locked profits, but it has been consolidating beautifully right here around 30 cents. And the insider buys took place at 25 cents. So pretty good area of potential support down there at 25. Now, if this were to come back, they've been building out this new facility. If this were to pull back to the 200-day moving average or down here to 18 cents, I would reload the boat. But I'm looking at this one as a potential day trading opportunity if they get news and breaking out potential flat top breakout. Really good looking setup on LQMT. And look, this could also be a lotto play. I mean, now it's broken above 29 cents. It closed at 30 cents. Maybe you look for a pullback into the 29-cent range for an entry, but really good looking setup on LQMT. All right, moving along. DYN, I really like the look of this one too, right? This is a utility, which recently just had a quick bounce. And if the markets weaken, if the markets weaken, utilities could be a place that you see some money flow to, right? For the dividend and all that stuff. We'll see. But what I like about this chart, and they've got earnings coming up on Thursday. You've got stochastics, which are crossing to the upside. You've reclaimed the 200-day moving average. You have a rising 50-day, rising 20-day, and you've been consolidating just above that 200-day, right above the $9 holla, which is a nice round number. I love round number rolls. If you want to learn more about that, come over to AlphaWolfTrading.com. Sign up as a member, and I'll teach you everything I know, everything I like, all the setups I like. But this is one I really like. I like round number rolls, and we'll see if this one can take out $9 off of earnings. Now, it might break out before earnings. It could be a trade there. There's only 93 million shares in the float, 22% short interest. Now, there have been insider buys between $11.61, $17.55, but they have a lot of debt, and that's really been the issue with DYN. But they also just sold off division or something, and which will help their balance sheet quite a bit. So interesting look on DYN. Could be a swing, could be a day trade, could be a long-term investment if you do your due diligence. But this is a pretty nice look and setup on the daily. It's been consolidating. We'll see what it does through earnings. Let's see, moving on. TRQ. So, we had FCX, which reported, copper miner, reported last week, better than expected earnings. FCX had a very nice run. TRQ moved in sympathy. I actually tried to get this for a day trade, little short-term swing. Didn't get a fill, but I am watching it. It pierced the upper Bollinger Band. We've reclaimed the 200-day. Now, it is overbought. So I think they have earnings on Monday. I'm not sure if it's before or after the close. But this one also has a pretty interesting look. I think where it becomes compelling, maybe for a swing opportunity, depending on how those earnings come in, is a pullback to $3, right? What was resistance then maybe becomes support. So that's where I'd be looking at a potential entry on TRQ. And I think this one has a fairly big float as well. But I think it's worth keeping an eye on for the reaction after earnings. And FCX had a really, really nice move. Okay, hold on a second. DVAX. So DVAX had some news after the close on Friday, where the panel, or actually, I think the news might have come out during the hours, but it was halted. So I had some news that the panel voted to approve their drug. I think it was up something like 75% after the close, up to about $6.60, which is where there is some pretty significant price resistance. See here, you got resistance, you had a support here, resistance there. You've got a trend line that you're coming up into as potential resistance. What was interesting about this is that there was a analyst that came out, I think it was either Thursday or Friday, that put a $45 price target on DVAX. Pretty gutsy call, I have to admit. Pretty gutsy call right before the decision, and the decision came out, and it's popping. So, to test this long-term trend line, you see I just adjusted it a bit on the weekly time frame. It could go all the way up into this $19 or $17.50 area, $17.50 to $19, somewhere in that area. I wouldn't chase this. I'd look for an intraday opportunity on it, but this could be one that's definitely in play, and I really would be looking at that one more for a day trading opportunity, quick scalp. I haven't checked their balance sheet, but like a lot of times you get these kind of news events, and that's an opportunity to raise capital. So just be real careful there. 54 million shares in the float, 11.5% short interest. Moving right along, DDD. I mentioned that they have earnings coming up. I think it's on Thursday. I'm looking at the fact that it's pulling back to this trend line right here. It's right there, and it's right there at the 200-day moving average. So you got a lot going on here for potential support. If they happen to be, give good numbers, you could see a pretty nice little bounce and snapback in DDD. 108 million shares, 23% short interest. Probably just a day trade or a short-term swing. Play it size appropriate. Don't chase any kind of a gap. Sirius satellite radio just broke out of 550. This is a long-term hold candidate. 1.5 billion shares in the float, 17% short interest. Remember, they now have a piece of Pandora. So if Pandora happens to pop, then you might see a corresponding pop in Sirius. If Pandora drops, you may see a corresponding drop in Sirius. And then I would be looking for an entry at $5.50. What was resistance potentially becomes support. I think it could be an interesting play for a long-term hold. Worth keeping an eye on it, even a short-term swing. But nice pop off of earnings, good volume, looking for consolidation. Hold on a second. All right, sorry about that. So Sirius satellite radio, definitely worth keeping an eye on, but this is way more of a swing or long-term hold. And the ideal entry for me on this one would be $5.50. Now, I don't know that you're going to get that entry. It may even pull back and test the 50-day moving average. I wouldn't take my full position because this would be a long-term hold. Probably take a starter position at $5.50 and then look for to add maybe if it were to pull back into the $5 range. Then I think it becomes even more compelling. But Sirius Satellite Radio, definitely worth keeping an eye on. Twitter, I like Twitter for a potential snapback play, coming back to an area of potential price support right here in the 1625 area. Jack Dorsey bought shares at $16.52 in April. 574,000 shares. I like throwing in areas. Now, I day traded this, or actually swung traded this a little while back, and now I'm looking to actually get back in it. We'll be producing a trade plan for this most likely for the pro traders over at Alpha Wolf Trading. But this one I think is really compelling on a pullback. And I just got some news that they are actually starting a trial on a new advertising type platform for like $99 a month. And I think if that is successful, it could be a good money maker for Twitter. So it could be interesting to see how that develops as well. So Twitter, worth keeping an eye on. More of a swing or long-term hold type trade. Zynga. So, you know, we've got Activision reporting. I think maybe even EA Sports is reporting. We've got Take-Two Interactive reporting. Zynga may be reporting as well. But if we get some good earnings, and I didn't look to see when earnings are on Zynga, but probably close to this time, it's been consolidating for a while. You've got an upward trending 50-day moving average. You've got some real resistance there at about $3.80. Looking for a test and roll. Maybe if we get some good earnings and good reaction out of some of the stocks like Activision and Take-Two that are reporting, this one moves in sympathy. It's a thick stock, 774 million shares in the float. Not a big short interest. On a pullback to 350 or so, could be an ideal entry on Zynga. And if I were to take this in my either long-term, probably my long-term hold position, pull back to 350, take a starter there, I think the better area for potential support is around $3. You have a lot of support in that area. So pull back to $3 and the 200-day moving average becomes even more compelling. So if I were to take a starter there, I would, and we got to pull back to $3, I would be looking to add to that position. That's why it's a long-term hold consideration. PMCB. So look, this is a little itty-bitty biotech. They just did a grant of 500,000 shares to a new board member at 0.058 cents. And, you know, I'm just looking at this thing technically, right? It had a nice little pop over this longer term trend line. If you back it out to the weekly time frame, this stock has been around for a long time. Actually, we could back this out to the monthly time frame. Look at this. It's been around for a long time. And if you just follow this big trend line, potentially you're looking at a very long-term trend reversal. Look at stochastics just starting to curl up on the monthly time frame. This is interesting for a potential day trade, maybe scalp opportunity, trading 2 million shares, so there is some liquidity there. Worth keeping an eye on this one. It's like I said, they've got they have a phase 2 pivotal trial that they're involved in right now. Could have some data come out before the end of the year. It came up to the 200-day moving average, pierced it, has fallen back below it. You know, maybe on that pullback to where this grant was done, you know, 5 cents. That could be an interesting spot to take it. Look, this is a lottery ticket, right? If it breaks over this trend line with any kind of conviction and takes out the 200-day, maybe, you know, maybe we get a test up to 10 cents. If it takes out 10 cents, you know, maybe you get a test up to 11 or 12 cents. That, on a percentage basis, that's a pretty decent return. So worth keeping an eye on that one for a potential day trading opportunity. And then Katos reported earnings, and earnings actually were pretty good. Now, it's pulling back. It closed below the 50-day moving average. This one is interesting to me at potentially a pullback to about $10.50. See how it acts there? You've got the CEO, which bought shares at $10.57. So you'd be buying at where the CEO is picking up shares. Look, if it breaks below 10.50, maybe you look to see if 10, nice round number, holds the support. Could be an interesting area to take a starter position. If it breaks through 10, then you have some really probably some better support down here in the $9 range. So I am keeping an eye on Katos. This has got a smaller float, 71 million shares in the float, 11% short interest, but it's I would still consider this more of a swing or long-term hold. It just had a heck of a run into these earnings, and guidance was pretty good, but maybe it takes a breather. Maybe you get a pull more back to this 200-day moving average, back to this trend line. But I think Katos, which is, the aerospace defense sector is a pretty strong looking sector, but it is consolidating a little bit and pulling back a little bit. I think Katos is a great looking potential swing or long-term hold. And that's it for my list for this week. A little bit of something for everybody. If you like what I do here, come check us out over at alphawolftrading.com. Present these trade plans every week. We do market recap. The whole purpose of Alpha Wolf Trading is to try and teach you how to build your plan, know your risk reward, and become a more consistently profitable trader. So check us out. Have a fantastic weekend. Good luck trading next week. Don't chase, and always know your risk reward. I'll see you next week.